Okay. A vision of the future if we pass the Green New Deal. Okay, well, what would happen would be that um, we would all be losing our rights, and we would become a dictatorship under probably a democratic socialist who will take all and the taxes would raise to unbearable measures. It would start with only the rich, but then it would spread to literally everyone, and it will affect mostly the middle class. And then the super rich will will either leave America or take control, or they'll just become super poor. And the middle class will all just get super poor, and the poor will get super poor, and everyone will be equal, but we'll all be super poor, and America would become Venezuela. And nobody would be able to afford cars because taxes would be too high. And we're trying to replace them all with everything. There would be no air travel at all, but nobody will be able to get it anywhere. And basically, we would all just become a horrible shithole. But, before all that happens, more than likely, places like Texas will try to leave America, and there will be some sort of civil war. And then, well, the people that the South would successfully leave this time, and then we would be 100% perfectly okay, while everyone who stayed in America and tried to do the Green New Deal suffers and practically burns to a crisp.
Recently, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez joined forces with Molly Crabapple, Naomi Klein, a number of really wonderful people to put together this video about the Green New Deal. Now, the whole point of the video is to show you what the future could be like.
It's a fantasy, impossible world. This is like Lord of the Rings level of fantasy. This is like Star Wars level of fantasy. This is not possible at all in any way.
What a country and what the world would be like.
The world? No. You're thinking of a fake utopia. Okay? Your perfect utopia that can never ever happen. This is ideal. Okay? That ain't gonna happen. It's not possible. Sorry to break it to you. We live in reality.
Decades from
this isn't Wakanda.
Now, if we pass the Green New Deal. And I really like this.
If we pass the Green New Deal, everything that you're in this graphic, none of it's going to happen. Because it's impossible. It's the definition of a fantasy world.
Molly Crabapple is the individual doing the animation, not the animations, the illustrations as you watch this.
Illustrations for a fantasy
video. Let's take a look at the first one.
Those were years of massive change, and not all of it was good. When Hurricane Sheldon hit southern Florida, parts of Miami went underwater for the last time. But as we battled the floods, fires, and droughts, we knew how lucky we were to have started acting when we did. And we didn't just change the infrastructure. We changed how we did things. We became a society that was not only modern and wealthy, but dignified and humane too. By committing to universal rights like healthcare and meaningful work for all.
No. Healthcare had nothing to do with rebuilding the Miami. Healthcare has nothing to do with where we are in America today. Universal healthcare had nothing to do with that. In fact, trying to do universal healthcare has increased healthcare prices so far. And universal healthcare in other countries decreases the quality of healthcare. So, no, that had nothing to do with it. And what was the other one?
We stopped that was not only modern and wealthy, but dignified and humane too. By committing to universal rights like healthcare and meaningful work for all.
Meaningful work for all. I don't have no idea what you mean by that. At all. In universal rights, you're going to take away universal rights by doing the Green New Deal. Universal rights like choice. You've already taken away the right of life to people while they're in the belly. Okay, you're taking away the right for people to be what they want to be. You're taking away freedom of choice with the Green New Deal. You're taking away people's freedom, universal rights with the Green New Deal. And again, Y'all are the ones that are anti-right.
We stop being so scared of the future. We stop.
Yeah, the future can be good. Okay? The ones preaching the scary future are, well, you idiots.
Being scared of each other. And we found
Y'all are the one causing division, not us.
our shared purpose.
What I love about this is it draws attention to the similarities between the New Deal and the Green New Deal.
What? There really isn't that many similarities. And if you go to history, the New Deal didn't fix the economy. The New Deal didn't do anything towards the economy, and she didn't even talk about the New Deal at all. She was talking about a flood. She didn't talk about the Great Depression. What are you even talking about? Okay, what?
And so Naomi Klein did a great job in writing about this for The Intercept. I'm going to give you a few excerpts about what she wrote in just a minute. But
by a good job, you mean indulge in your fantasy world and let you live your fantasy life, right?
What I like about the video is how it focuses on, yeah, this is a big idea. This is not going to be easy. This is a massive change.
This is a big idea. This is impossible. And this is not going to happen. I'm sorry to break it to you. The Green New Deal, what it calls for, is impossible. Okay? Getting a man on the moon. This isn't getting a man on the moon. Okay? Yes, it was hard. You put money on it. It was theoretically possible. Creating a railway system that makes flying unneeded is impossible. You'd have to build around the terrain or blow up the terrain, which y'all don't want to do. It's way too cost. The train itself is so expensive that it'll make the Green New Deal impossible. But then you also have to replace all the gas cars with electric cars, and it's not just that. You also got to put electric pumps everywhere, every corner, electric pumps, because well, people need to charge up their cars now, and not everyone's going to be able to charge up their electric car in their house. And then it's upgrading every single building in America. It's paying people who are unable and unwilling to work. It's the definition of impossible.
But there are huge benefits that come along with it. So,
what benefits? Losing your rights? Becoming Venezuela? Everyone becoming poor? Horrible healthcare?
there's this optimistic message, and of course...
No, there's not an optimistic message. Your message is, do this or you die. Okay? The message is, if you don't do our plan, everyone's going to die in 12 years. That's the message. How is that optimistic? Do this or we all die. How is that optimistic?
Of course, woven into the video is what's going to...
Oh, it's so optimistic if we do this. The message is do this or we die. Whatever.
happen if we don't take drastic action.
Right.
Yes, like I said, it's not optimistic at all. If we don't do this, we all die. We need to do this drastic action now or else.
Yeah. And I think the point that they make, Naomi Klein, AOC, and Molly Crabapple, who also has done amazing work for the drug war video with Jay-Z a couple of years ago that was in the New York Times, is that there is a different future available to us. And while politicians and...
There is a different future available for us, yes. Going down the Green New Deal path is not what y'all are showing. There's multiple different possibilities for a future. It's not just two at all, okay? There's not just two different possibilities. But the Green New Deal, none of the futures are bright. None. The Green New Deal will lead America to disaster. The best hope for humanity is humanity. Not giving it all to one power, not trying to destroy the greatest system on the planet.
cultural production all around us point towards a dystopia. We actually, if we act...
The one that points to dystopia is the one y'all are doing. America isn't a dystopia. America isn't leading into a dystopia right now. Right now, we're heading towards what we've always been. Greater, not a utopia, but greater. America is a great country. Everyone has great opportunities. It's wonderful. Everyone's wonderful here. What y'all are looking for is a fake utopia that will actually lead to a dystopia. This will lead to Cuba. This will lead to Venezuela. This will lead to the USSR. This will lead to Nazi Germany. Yes, Nazi Germany.
Now have a different possible generative future available to us.
We're not heading towards the dystopia. You do the Green New Deal, that will head us to the dystopia.
But we have to want to be active agents in it.
Yes.
Want to be active agents in it. Exactly. That's part of the biggest problem on why this won't work. I'm sorry, socialism doesn't work, especially on large scales like with how big America is. The biggest chance for any socialist kind of policy type thing that will work is when it comes to within the community. The smaller the community, the better a socialist type of idea will be. The bigger, the worse. But even places as small as Switzerland and Denmark and Norway, you know, the parts y'all point at for perfect socialism, even they aren't doing well with socialism. In fact, they built their wealth on a market economy, and they're moving even more towards a market economy because of how bad anything socialist is for them. In fact, they keep saying, stop pointing to us as a socialist economy, because we aren't socialists and we don't like it.
Definitely. So let's go to the next video. When we come back, I'm going to show you some of the similarities between the New Deal and the Green New Deal. Take a look.
Yeah, the similarities. You remember the New Deal didn't work. The New Deal didn't bring people out of poverty. The New Deal didn't fix anything in America. You know what fixed America? You know what brought America out of the Great Depression? Because it wasn't the New Deal. It was World War II.
Look.
The wave began when Democrats took back the House in 2018, and then the Senate and the White House in
The what? Wait. Yes, they brought back the House in 2018. But what about the Senate?
Show you some of the similarities between the New Deal and the Green New Deal. Take a look.
The wave began when Democrats took back the House in 2018, and then the Senate and the White House in 2020, and launched the...
What? No, I'm sorry, they aren't taking the White House and the Senate in 2020. I'm sorry. That's like... I don't... Okay, I guess you're already in your fantasy world, I guess. This is your made-up future. I guess it's possible, but it hasn't happened yet, so you're already in your fake made-up world.
Decade of the Green New Deal, a flurry of legislation that kicked off our social and ecological transformation to save the planet. It's the kind...
Save the planet. Okay, well, let's start with this. Humans have a small effect on climate change. In fact, the majority of climate change is actually natural-based. It has nothing to do with humans. And when it comes to the human factors, the largest contributors come from India and China. America, I'm sorry to break it to you, is not the largest contributor to climate change, let alone the human part of climate change. So even if we do this in America, and let's say what you're saying is true. Climate change is about to destroy the world, and if we don't do anything in 12 years, we're all dead. Okay? Well, and let's say the Green New Deal works in America. We do the Green New Deal, it works, we're a utopia. 12 years, we're still all dead because we did nothing.
The swing for the fence ambition we needed. Finally.
A swing for the fence ambition that we didn't need because it would destroy us. We go down into the decades of the Green New Deal. A swing for the fence ambition that killed America, caused the Great Civil War.
We're entertaining solutions on the scale of the crises we faced without.
On the scale of the crisis we faced. You know, the scale that the Green New Deal, the thing that caused another Great Civil War, caused the downfall of America, created a whole bunch of people, more poverty, more homeless people eating their pets, nobody having vehicles, nobody being able to get anywhere, no planes, everyone's just screwed. America became fucked, and then China became, well, the leader of the world. China became the leader of the world because America just fell down. And now there is no, who cares about freedom anymore? Because China is the leader of the world, and China don't care about freedom. All of a sudden the world becomes a huge dystopia, unless some place where there's major freedom is able to come up and counter China. Counter China, North Korea, and all of China's allies.
Leaving anyone behind. That included Medicare for All, the most popular social program.
Medicare for All. Okay. Well, everyone wants everyone to be able to get Medicare, but it's the most popular social program. Well, Medicare for All that y'all want is not really as popular as you think it is. And even if it is, it's for the wrong reasons, because it's, again, bad for us. Medicare for All, yes, everyone's covered, yada yada, whatever. People, their taxes get higher, less doctors get paid less, so there's less doctors, less people going into the medical field. In fact, doctors are kind of, they hate the government interfering with all their stuff already. All of a sudden there's less advancements in medicine. The private industry is the leader in advancements in medicine. Well, without that, there's even less advances in medicine. Healthcare quality, yes, we're all covered, but the quality of the healthcare will get even worse. We'll be like Canada, where the quality, yes, you're happy about the healthcare, but then you have to go get healthcare, and you're like, man, I hate this healthcare, it sucks. Or like Venezuela, where the hospitals are falling apart despite them proudly boasting we have amazing healthcare. Or Cuba. Universal healthcare, the way y'all want it, will knock down America. It's already, or not that, maybe not knock down America, but it'll make all healthcare worse.
In American history, we also introduced the Federal Jobs Guarantee, a public option.
The Federal Jobs Guarantee. Remember something like the Green New Deal, the thing that didn't do anything for poverty in the Great Depression? Yeah, that thing. You know, just, you need to be able to earn a job. You can't just sit there and just be guaranteed a job.
Including dignified living wages for work.
Okay, what is a living wage? A living wage is impossible to do. Because as you raise minimum wage, everything else raises with it. Everything else. You're not just raising minimum wage. You're raising everyone else's wages. You're raising the price of all the products. And you're actually, the only thing you're not raising is jobs. You're decreasing jobs. Paying 2 people for $7.50 an hour, or pay 1 person for $15 an hour. Okay? See the difference? The 2 people will then suddenly be worth 4 people if you keep those 2 people. And that's going to be a problem. And the living wage, when you're talking about minimum wage, the majority of people on minimum wage are people who go to college or they're in high school right now and they're just joining the jobs industry. The majority of people don't stay in minimum wage. They go up and they get higher wages. Okay, no, minimum wage does not equal the average price of a home. I'm sorry, the average price of a home is not going to equal minimum wage. If you want to compare the two, why not get the average wage with the average price of a home? And even then there's going to be problems because there's those houses that cost millions and billions of dollars. And there's going to be those houses like that cost $300 to rent a month in. And yes, there are places that you can find where it's just $300. In fact, I've found one.
Oddly enough, the biggest problem in those early years was a labor shortage. We were building a national smart grid, retrofitting every building in America, putting trains like this one.
Okay, you're talking about the Green New Deal? The thing that did not at all bring us out of poverty. In fact, after, the initial start, it just, kind of died back down and we were all back on square one because everyone was still suffering and in poverty. Again, what brought us out of the Great Depression? World War II.
All across the country. We needed more workers.
So it talks about so many different issues there that I really love. And to give you an idea of how
Fake issues, mostly, and of course you love it.
similar the reception was to the New Deal, to the Green New Deal. Naomi Klein writes that elite critics derided FDR's plans as everything from creeping fascism to closet communism. In a 1933 equivalent of "They're coming for your hamburgers," Republican Senator Henry Hatfield of West Virginia wrote to a colleague, quote, "This is despotism."
Okay. So, they didn't like it, and they don't like it now. So they aren't being a little bit of a hypocrite at all. And then when you sit back and you think about it, did the Green New Deal actually do anything to help America? No. It made the federal government even bigger, but it didn't do anything to help America out of poverty. We were still in the Great Depression. Once again, the Great Depression we didn't get out of until the 40s with World War II. 1930s, we were still in the Great Depression. We sucked.
This is tyranny. This is the annihilation of liberty. The ordinary American is thus reduced to the status of a robot. So the fear-mongering was very much apparent in how people react.
The fear-mongering? You mean the type of fear-mongering you do when you say if you don't do this legislation, you're all going to die? If you don't do this legislation, the world's going to end. But if you do this legislation, we're all going to be all happy and it's going to be a beautiful, perfect utopia. I'm sorry, that's not how the world works. It's not, if we don't do this, we're all going to die. If you do this, we're all going to be in a utopia. This is a fantasy. Y'all are living in a fantasy world right now.
To the New Deal. And of course, we're seeing the same thing right now when it comes to the Green New Deal. Historian Kim Phillips.
Again, what did the Green New Deal, what did the New Deal do? Did it actually help? No, it didn't help America at all. Again, it initially helped. I mean, it was initially good, as all social programs are. They initially start well, but then, after its initial thing, people look at it and it did nothing. Nothing. People were still living in poverty. The Great Depression was still happening up until the 40s with World War II. Okay? If you want to look at history and how we get out of the Great Depression and all that, it's World War II. It was a great war. So I guess if you want to use your logic on you looking at history and how to stop climate change, we need a World War III, I guess, don't you? Because that's what really happened. Pass the Green New Deal and then sit back and watch as nothing happens, and then start World War III. And then all of a sudden that will fix America.
Fine, author of Invisible Hands, The Businessmen's Crusade Against the New Deal, told me that the parallels of today's attacks on the Green New Deal in outlets like the New York Times are obvious. They didn't outright oppose it, but in many cases, they would argue that you don't want to make so many changes at once, that it was too big, too quick, that the administration should wait and study more. So that was the reaction.
Too big, too quick, wait, study more. They didn't outright oppose it. Didn't you just quote someone who just outright opposed it, calling it tyranny, and saying, pick a lane, lady? And secondly, I'm sorry. Once again, you're trying to look at the Green New Deal for why you're looking at the New Deal for why the Green New Deal will work, even though they aren't really the same. But you know what? Look at the New Deal. Once again, did the New Deal actually accomplish anything? No. Did it actually bring people out of poverty? No. Did people hate it? Yes. Okay, people hated it. Yes, they initially liked it, but then they hated it. As they realized it actually took away some of their rights. And some of those, what was it? The letter organizations, because they were acronyms based on letters, because there are so many of them. A lot of them stopped. Yes, there's some still used around today, but there's an acronym, NRA, used before the modern NRA. And the NRA back then just ended. The old NRA ended because, well, it infringed on civil liberties. Kind of like a lot of it, the New Deal failed.
To FDR's New Deal, and we're seeing it today with the Green New Deal. It's amazing.
It's so crazy to me that if you look back on some, the New Deal is now considered one of the shining examples of American history.
If a lot of the people who consider it a shining example of American history are falsely seeing it as a shining example of American history, because it did nothing. And this isn't just me saying you went through a history class, you heard about how FDR did a Green New Deal and how it was supposed to help. You heard about the dam that he built, the Hoover Dam. You remember that? How he made the dam? But then after the dam and after that, everyone was still in poverty. And in the in the 20s, we had the Roaring 20s, but in the 30s, everyone was in depression. And everyone was still in depression. And then World War II happened, which, if you actually look at actual historians, they all agree that World War II brought America out of poverty. Not the New Deal, not the New Deal. World War II. Okay, that's what brought America out of poverty.
Right? It's when we instituted Social Security. It's when.
No, it's not when we instituted Social Security. Because that really didn't do anything. And let's look at Social Security nowadays. Just like all the other social programs that was instituted, Social Security is failing. It's going bankrupt. I will never get anything from Social Security. It's going bankrupt. I'm sorry. It failed.
You built the Hoover Dam, like all these amazing.
Like I said, the Hoover Dam. It was great at the time, but then right after the Hoover Dam was built, there was nothing for America. We were still in poverty. It didn't help anything. But those are the only two examples you can think of. Because, well, we still have the Hoover Dam at least, right? Even though after the Hoover Dam was built, it did nothing because everyone was still living in poverty. Or how about the Social Security that's going bankrupt and failing? What about all those other social programs that already failed and went away? You don't want to mention any of those? Of course not. You can only think about the two that survived. One, the Hoover Dam, that's not doing anything for America today in any socialist way. It's just kind of sitting there because, well, how? And then what about Social Security? That's going bankrupt. You're still praising it? It's going bankrupt. That's about to be gone.
Things that we take for granted in American society right now.
Yes, we are taking it for granted. Social Security is about to be gone. We won't have Social Security anymore because it's going bankrupt. Because like all the other social programs, it won't work. It won't work long lasting. Just like every other social program ever, it's not going to last forever. It fails. The only thing that's worked for over 200 years, well, capitalism. You can't say capitalism is unsustainable when from 1776 to 2019, capitalism has kept America wonderful.
As shining examples of American prosperity.
Again, how the fuck is the Great Depression a shining example of American prosperity? Can you explain that one to me? How is the Great Depression a shining example of American prosperity? That's what they showed. That's where they cut her off. Okay, I'm gonna attach this nice little video onto the TYT one because, well, this does a good job at actually talking about the video that AOC made. And it's funny whenever he does all the jokes, And then it's also pretty nice, and he actually goes into the facts of why the Green New Deal was bad and why it doesn't work, and that's what TYT was doing, where they just can't let go of bad policies. This is actual justice warrior. He makes some pretty good videos, fact-based, and yeah, go ahead and subscribe to him if you aren't, which I feel like a lot of you probably are if you're watching these type of videos from me, because I am not that big of a channel.
What's up guys, Sean here, and today we're going to talk about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez partnering with The Intercept and a time travel agency to send us a message from our future.
You see, this is part of the joke he's going on. That was part of the joke. He's going to get to fact stuff.
Before we get started, I do want to say thank you to everybody who joined me over on Twitter. Thank you to my patrons and my Subscribe Star subscribers, and the people who donate via one-time donation on PayPal. Your support really helps this channel continue, and I appreciate it way more than you know. Alexandria.
Yeah, go ahead and not only subscribe to him, but if you have a Twitter, go ahead and follow him on Twitter. You watch his videos. I'm not going to tell you to donate to him on Patreon. That's your choice. That's if you want to. That's if you want to do this. That's your choice.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the most important congresswoman in this Congress. You know what? Scratch that. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is probably the most important member of Congress in the history of Congress, because she single-handedly, with her Green New Deal, has saved the world, invented time travel, and sent us an educational video about her amazing and stunning achievements. Now, I know you guys might be thinking,
yeah, he's going on because the reason why he's doing it like that is because AOC really does have a big head. She thinks way too highly of herself. She's a narcissist, and she really is a narcissist. She thinks she's.
Isn't the Green New Deal that terrible piece of legislation that dropped a few months ago that the Democrats themselves didn't vote for in the Senate? In fact, Mitch McConnell only brought it up to a vote because it was so bad and he wanted to get the Democrats on record. And when given the chance to vote for it, those same Democrats were too afraid to attach their name to it, so most of them voted present and some of them voted no, but it got absolutely no yes votes. Well, yes, I am talking about that same...
Yeah, that legislation. If y'all remember, I did make a video on it, and I titled it Green New Deal Gets Shot Down, because yeah, it got shot down. Nobody voted yes for it, not even AOC. They just either voted present, Democrats voted present, and Republicans voted no, and even some Democrats voted no, because it was a horrible piece of legislation that even Democrats know is bad.
Green New Deal, because apparently in the future it passes and it completely changes the United States of America for the better, and we save the entire planet.
The bullet train from New York.
Yeah, 'cause remember, it's not just... The argument isn't just it's too big and too fast. There's like actual legitimate argument against the Green New Deal, and we'll hear it. And this is a much more thorough thing of... we see much more of AOC's video here. With the bullet train.
DC. It always brings me back to when I first started making this commute.
I hate to break it to Ocasio-Cortez, but that bullet train that she's riding on in the future is not getting built. I actually talked about trains in a whole separate video on the Green New Deal that I put on my channel. I'll link it in the iCard in the description down below. But other than the exorbitant cost and impracticality of building train lines across the country, one of the things that I pointed out is that you need a really straight track to have bullet trains or high-speed trains, which is why despite the fact that the Northeast Corridor is one of the few profitable train lines for Amtrak, they haven't shut it down to build a bullet train because it's curved, and in order to do so, you would have to seize a bunch of people's property to make it work. Now, the reason I spend so much time...
Yeah, so, once again, it's impossible. The train part itself is impossible. And he did make a video on this, and go ahead and just subscribe to his channel. He points out stupid stuff like this. I have no disagreements here.
on this part of the video is not because I'm being petty. It's to point out that there already is a train that can take you from New York City to DC, and it's pretty efficient. But you know who doesn't take that train? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She'd rather fly.
Yes. She flies to New York and DC whenever there's a train to go from New York to DC. And her whole argument is it saves time. Well, you're being a hypocrite. Who cares if it saves time? It saves the planet to take the train, okay? And well, not just that. It doesn't really save time. It saves at most a few minutes.
Hi, and I find it more than a little bit annoying that this video of AOC lecturing us supposedly from the future features in its first 10 seconds her doing something that she can't be bothered to do right now. She can easily take the train from New York to DC as she's going back and forth from her district to Congress, but she doesn't. But in the future, she's leading the way. And that's
one of the biggest problems about her. Here's the thing. A lot of people, at the very least, and whenever they talk about the planet saving the planet, or these even vegans, they lead by example. Vegans aren't going around eating meat saying, meat's bad for you. Y'all shouldn't eat meat. Oh, meat is murder. As they eat meat. No, they stop from eating meat. AOC could easily live a lifestyle that's as green as she can make it. She's choosing not to.
really Ocasio-Cortez's ideology in a nutshell. Instead of I need to make a change to make a better world, I need to use force of government in order to force you to make a change because I think it's better.
I think that's an ad coming up, yeah. Okay. And yes, that is no big problem. If all these different people that talk about how you need to make a change to save the planet, if they sat back and they started living the way they want everyone else to live, that would make a bigger impact than them sitting down going, you need to change, you need to change, you need to change now.
In 2019, I was a freshman in the most diverse Congress in history. Up to that point, it was a critical time. I'll never forget the children in our community. They were so inspired to see this new class of politicians who reflected them, navigating the halls of power. It's often said, you can't be what you can't see. And for the first time...
No. You can be what you can't see. In fact, you don't need to see something to be it. You don't need to see something to believe it. You can go out there and do it. This is in America. You have the opportunity to be what you want to be. The question is, do you do it? Do you put in the work to do it? All these women, all these colored people in Congress, they always had the chance. And there's more women than there are men in America. So, yeah. It's just, if more people ran, so more people won. And it's, you want to talk about sexism or racism? It's not that. It's people vote based on policies, and the people who run the most they're the ones people run, they have a chance of winning.
They saw themselves.
The next part of this is absolutely hilarious. She's talking about how her class of Congress is the most diverse in American history up until this point. I believe long term this will probably prove to be relatively true. Like, we are getting more diverse representatives. There were more women elected in the 2019 Congress than any other Congress in history. So I understand that this is going forward going to be a thing that happens. The hilarious part about this is she's saying that she herself is an inspiring figure because people need to see other people do it in order to know that they can do it, which is what I like to call loser logic. I'm assuming most of you in my audience are probably not big fans of Barack Obama, but Obama didn't need to see a black person run for president and win. He just did it. Because it was possible. If you were born in the United States and you're over 35, you can run for president and you can win. You don't even have to have any political experience to do so.
With the Green New Deal, we knew that we needed to save the planet and that we had all the technology to do it. But people were scared. They said it was too big, it's too fast.
aren't the arguments.
Practical.
It's not practical at all. These arguments, they're all true, but those aren't the only arguments. It's flat out impossible.
I think that's because they just couldn't picture it yet.
So the next thing she gets into is the Green New Deal. And basically she's saying that the reason people have had such a bad reaction to the legislation is not because the legislation is dumb and its priorities are ridiculous. It's because we couldn't see it. Just like we couldn't see diverse members of Congress being elected, even though for most of us, that wasn't like an abstract, unrealistic notion. You want to know why there's so many women in Congress? Because more women ran for Congress than ever before. This isn't rocket science, people. If you run and you secure a party nomination, which is really not that hard depending on the district, then you have a chance of winning in a general election. In fact, there are some places where if you get the right party's nomination, you're guaranteed to win in a general election. America's not a deeply hateful and sexist place. In fact, women have been outvoting men since 1980 in this country. So this has always been possible, and it will continue to be possible. Again, more women won because more women ran. Not that
Is that another fucking ad? Okay, yeah, and he's 100% accurate about that. I don't really have much to add here. We just gotta wait through the...
complicated.
With the Green New Deal, we knew that we needed to save the planet and that we had all the technology to do it.
Another thing...
No, you do not have all the technology to do it, okay? You don't have the technology to save the planet. What you do have is you have the ability to lower your carbon footprint, and each person has the ability to lower their own carbon footprint, but we don't have the technology to just force everyone into the Green New Deal, or the technology to get everyone to stop and lower the carbon footprint to the point you want.
She claims is that people didn't believe in the Green New Deal despite the fact that we have all the technology in order to create the world that the Green New Deal envisions. And that's not true. However, the reason that's not true is not exactly what you think, because in reality, we do have existing technology that would achieve the carbon cuts that are required under the Green New Deal's premise. However, the Green New Deal's execution completely goes in the wrong direction. One of the biggest problems with wind and solar is completely unsolvable, and that's that the sun doesn't shine all the time. No amount of engineering ingenuity are going to fix those problems. That's why Germany, the country that invested the most in solar energy, actually saw their carbon emissions go up. Because solar and wind are only reliable about 30% of the time, Germany has had to use natural gas to supplement their grid while transitioning to renewables.
You see, this is what I mean. Anytime the government interferes in people's lives in such a radical way, it's bad. It always ends up bad. And anytime humans interfere in nature, even if you try to help, it ends up bad. Okay, our best bet is to leave nature alone.
The huge problem with these type of renewables is storage, battery technology. It turns out that the state of California only has enough battery capacity to store 25 minutes of power for their grid. And the only way you can get that energy storage number that high is if you include every single battery in the state of California. Every car battery, every...
So, storage. We don't have the technology yet. Because, well, we can't store the energy well enough for that yet. There we go. You see, the problem, we can't just go into this huge one source of energy. We need to have a nice diverse source of energy. You can't just radically get rid of ones that we don't like and radically mass produce ones that we like because we think it's going to save the planet.
Battery in your remote. So the 25 minutes of storage is completely meaningless. It's not storage that the electric company has, and that's because batteries are not safe when they get to a certain size, and batteries are criminally inefficient. When you transfer energy into a battery and then try to draw on that power later, you lose up to 30% of that power. So the biggest problems with wind and solar are not the fossil fuel companies suppressing wind and solar technology. It's that we can't control the wind and we can't control the sun, and battery technology is 1,000 times worse than where we need it to be. However, that does not mean that we don't have technology that could dramatically cut our carbon emissions. The problem is that the Green New Deal calls for banning that technology, and that's nuclear energy technology. You see, France...
You want to save the planet. You want green energy, yet you don't want nuclear energy, which is the greenest of the energy, and the most efficient energy, and, well, actually really safe, because honestly, nuclear energy is actually a lot safer than what people want you to think of.
Actually invested much less money into a nuclear energy program, and they currently get 93% of their energy from clean, carbon-free nuclear power. And that's without a Green New Deal, without becoming a socialist nation. They just invested in the right technology, and it works. In fact, the reason Germany's carbon emissions have gone up and not down, despite the fact that they've been incorporating more green energy into their grid, is because they shut down some of their nuclear plants. All of Germany's carbon emission cuts that were the result of them spending double what France spent on their nuclear program on a solar program were completely wiped out by them shutting down a few nuclear power plants. Now, some of you might be worried about nuclear power. You may have heard some propaganda about radiation or maybe nuclear waste, but it turns out, statistically, nuclear energy is the safest form of energy. So we have safe, efficient, and basically no carbon footprint except for constructing the nuclear power plant. Now, I'm not saying we should cover the world in nuclear power plants, but what I am saying is if it's your position that the world is going to end in 12 years...
The world's leading climate scientists declared another emergency. They told us that we had 12 years left to cut our emissions in half, or hundreds of millions of people would be more likely to face food and water shortages, poverty, and death.
Yet, you don't want nuclear energy, which will help with that.
12 years to change everything.
Then how are you not calling for covering the world in nuclear power plants? Then how can you, in the same breath, in the same piece of legislation, call for shutting down nuclear power plants, which are clearly the solution to the problem you propose? It's almost as if this isn't about carbon emissions, and it's really about seizing control over the economy.
The only way to do it was to transform our economy, which we already knew was broken, since the vast majority of wealth was going to just a small handful of people. And most...
Alright, now this is a huge myth that socialists like AOC push, okay? Now, first off, in order to believe this, you have to ignore the fact that, well, people are actually moving through different levels of, well, classes, different classes all the time. The majority of Americans will see themselves and move through classes a lot. They'll see themselves move up through classes. In fact, the majority of Americans, like I said, they start out in a job, and then as you get older, you get more money, and you move up in class. And then there's going to be those Americans that are up top, and they end up falling down in class. That's how the market economy works. It's not some stagnant small percentage at the top that gets all the money. And as the richer get rich, the poor also get richer. It's not that they're getting poorer, they're getting more. It's not just because the rich is getting richer doesn't mean the poor is getting poorer. The poor is getting more money as well, and they're getting better health conditions, living quality, and they're living a lot better. Okay? Poverty in America isn't the same as poverty in other countries. If you're in poverty in America, you're pretty well off. Well, I'm not saying you are. If you're in poverty in America, you're well off compared to other places in the world. Okay? In fact, there's no correlation to poverty rates. Our poverty rate is really low. Unemployment rates are really low. The biggest problem in the American job industry right now is there are too many jobs. That's the problem.
folks were falling further and further behind.
Oh,
Well, they're not falling further and further behind. They're getting more and more money as well. Oh, wait, let's take this. Take everyone's money, multiply by 2. This person's making $5 an hour, now he's making $10 an hour. The person up on the top where he's making $100 an hour, now $200 an hour. The wage gap is bigger between the rich and the poor, but everyone's better off, aren't they?
because it's not about carbon emissions. It's about seizing control over the economy.
Yeah.
The wave began when Democrats took back the House in 2018, and then the Senate and the White House in 2020, and launched.
Yeah, you were predicting that Democrats are going to take back the House and the Senate in 2020. I highly doubt that, but whatever.
Decade of the Green New Deal, a flurry of legislation that kicked off our social and ecological transformation to save the planet. That included Medicare.
Yeah, no. It's to save the planet. No. The Green New Deal would collapse America, and it ain't gonna save the planet. Like I said, humans actually have a minute factor in climate change, and America has a minute factor of the human factor. America doing what it's doing won't do anything to the world. No.
For all, the most popular.
So like I was saying, if the Green New Deal passes and we actually have the utopia you imagine, it ain't gonna change climate change at all. That's if it happens. It ain't gonna happen though. We're gonna collapse and we're not gonna be a good country no more.
Social program in American history.
So they take the White House and the Senate in 2020, keep the Congress, and then they usher in the decade of the Green New Deal. 10 years of legislation to address the climate crisis. And what do they start with? Medicare for all. Why? Because the big carbon polluters in the world? Private health insurance companies. You didn't know that? Well, AOC knew that. That's why that's the first policy they pushed on us. Medicare for all.
That group of
Medicare for all is also not a very good policy. It will actually, again, it will lower healthcare quality. It will give us less doctors, and medical advances will be far less. In fact, the reason why prices are so high right now, a lot of the reason is because it's part social, part market. We need to head towards more of a market, and we'll start seeing the prices go down. We need more competition.
kids from my neighborhood were right in the middle of it all, especially this one girl, Ileana.
Elia Martel?
I am the brother of Elia Martel. Say her name. Elia Martel.
Especially this one girl, Ileana.
No, okay, Eliana. Okay. Let's hear about Eliana, the girl from AOC's home district that is going to do so much.
Her first job out of college was with AmeriCorps Climate, restoring wetlands and bayous in coastal Louisiana. Most of her friends were in her union, including some oil workers in transition.
All right, so she's restoring the wetlands in Louisiana with people who used to drill for oil because, I guess too many of them learned to code. So some of them decided to, become bioengineers. And this is my favorite part of the video.
Of course, when it came to healing the land, we had huge gaps in our knowledge. Luckily, indigenous communities offered generational expertise to help guide the way.
Yes, you heard that correctly. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, progressive congresswoman of the future, Mrs. Social Justice, just said that scientists and bioengineers don't have the knowledge to restore the wetlands of Louisiana.
Okay. Let's just continue.
Generational expertise to help guide the way.
Yes, you heard that correctly. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, progressive congresswoman of the future, Mrs. Social Justice, just said that scientists and bioengineers don't have the knowledge to restore the wetlands of Louisiana, but Native Americans, with their generational knowledge, showed the scientists how to heal the land. I'm assuming because, according to Ocasio-Cortez, Native Americans just have a spiritual connection to nature that us non-natives don't have. It's a part of their culture. It's a part of their blood. I know what you guys might be thinking.
Aren't the left, with climate change, supposed to be pro-science? And the right, because they believe in God, supposed to be anti-science and blinded by fake faith? And their whole thing is based on faith? Well, AOC just said scientists didn't have the knowledge to save the wetlands, but Native Americans with a spiritual connection did. What the...
This clearly is pushing stereotypes about Native Americans and their connections to nature and the land. Stereotypes that should have been gotten rid of when we stopped talking about them like they're noble savages that have this connection to nature. Well, it turns out AOC is a progressive, so she can make all the stereotypes and generalizations she wants, and it will be passed off as progressive.
Ileana got restless, tried her hand as a solar plant engineer for a while, but eventually made her career in raising the next generation as part of the Universal Child Care Initiative.
I also absolutely love this fictional character that Ocasio-Cortez invented for this video. This woman who went from marshland restorer to engineer at a solar power plant to teacher. Like, what exactly did she get her degree in college? Or is free college mean that you can just go forever and live out your adolescence until you get tired of it and then get a bunch of different crappy government jobs?
Ileana heard the call too, and in 2028 she ran for office in the first cycle of publicly funded election campaigns. And now she occupies the seat that I once held. I couldn't be more proud of her, a true child of the Green New Deal.
Of course, the end to this character's life is getting Ocasio-Cortez's seat in Congress, because, you know, being where she is, according to her, is the most important achievement in this person's crazy career path.
Yes. Like I said, she's a narcissist. Plus, well, she believes she's going to be in office only until 2028. I think that's a pretty short political career.
That is honestly way more interesting than bartender turned congresswoman. But since Ocasio-Cortez is an egomaniac above all else, getting her seat in Congress, her seat, the one that she sits in right now, the one that's hers, is a crowning achievement in somebody's life. I don't really know what else I can say except for thank you, Ocasio-Cortez. This was amazing. Thank you to The Intercept, which is allegedly a journalistic outlet, and thank you to the people in the future who sent this back in time for our entertainment. I'm genuinely happy that Ocasio-Cortez and the media are going to continue to push this Green New Deal for the foreseeable future. It's going to produce a lot of hilarious videos for me. Anyway, that's all I really have for you guys today. Let me know what you think about this Intercept video.
I'm gonna fill in the gaps that both he, actual Justice Warrior, and TYT left out.
I think that's because they just couldn't picture it yet. Anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's start with how we got here. 1977, New York. A senior scientist named James Black made a presentation about how burning fossil fuels could eventually lead to global temperatures rising 4 or 5 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh, you're talking about old predictions that didn't happen, like how the world was supposed to end a long time ago? Louisiana, Florida, California are all supposed to be underwater. There's supposed to be no ice caps by 2013. Yeah.
Within 2 years, one of the world's biggest supertankers was outfitted with a state-of-the-art lab to measure CO2 in the ocean, gathering more data about global warming. Guess who was doing all of this research? ExxonMobil, the oil and gas company. Oh yeah, Exxon knew this whole time, as did our politicians. 10 years later, James Hansen.
What? No. This isn't something... No, oil and gas companies aren't over here trying to destroy the earth and hide all that.
NASA's top climate scientist told Congress he was 99% certain that global warming was happening and caused by humans. That was 1988.
Global warming isn't caused by humans, though. Climate change isn't caused by humans at all. Climate change is the natural process of the earth. It happened before humans were here, and it's going to happen after humans are gone. In fact, climate change... You want to know what? Climate change happened in what's got rid of the Ice Age. It was because of humans. And I'm sorry, climate change killed the dinosaurs. That wasn't because of humans. This isn't... That's science. Again, these are people, the same people who said that the icebergs, the ice poles, there would be no ice by 2013. That by now, California, Louisiana, Florida, they'd be all underwater.
The year before I was even born. So did Exxon listen to the science, including their own? Did they
So you were born in 89. Okay.
change business models, invest in renewables? No.
Actually, yes. Don't say no. Yes. That's why we have solar panels. That's why we have the dam, water, hydro energy. That's why we have windmills. That's why we have nuclear energy. Because, well, people invested in green energy. Stupid.
No, the opposite. They knew and they doubled down. They and others spent millions setting up a network of lobby groups and think tanks to create doubt and denial about climate change. It was an
What? No. Climate change didn't happen. I mean, climate change didn't kill us all, did it? Do we still have ice? Ice? Yes, we still have ice. Things aren't underwater. The Great Lakes are filling back up with water whenever they're supposed to be drying out. They're filling back up. I'm sorry. You know who's causing the doubt and denial? You guys are, because you keep perpetuating all these fake predictions that end up wrong. People put money in their... Most people who don't believe in climate change at all, they're the people who put their lives based on your predictions that were placed, like how the Great Lakes would never go back up to its normal levels. And then, well, now they're exceeding their record-breaking, and people are losing businesses and homes because of it. They put money and they base their lives around, their entire lives, on your predictions. Wrong predictions.
effort designed to attack and dispute the very kind of science they themselves had been doing. And it worked.
No, because it's not science. It isn't. Science doesn't say that climate change is going to kill us all in 12 years.
Politicians went to bat for fossil fuels, and these massive corporations kept digging and mining, drilling and fracking like there was no tomorrow. America became the biggest producer and consumer of oil in the world. Fossil fuel companies made hundreds of billions, while the public paid the lion's share to clean up their disasters. We lost a generation of time we'll never get back. Entire species will never get back.
Rhinos are dying off due to poaching. It has nothing to do with climate change.
Natural wonders gone forever.
Due to weather, not climate change.
And in 2017, Hurricane Maria destroyed the place where my family was from, Puerto Rico.
That's weather. It's not climate. I'm sorry. Hurricanes is gonna happen even if we do all of this that you want. Hurricanes happens even without the fossil fuels and the oil industries. What the
It was like a climate bomb. It took as many Americans.
No, that was weather. You get on to other people about confusing weather and climate, and here you are, confusing weather and climate.
Lives as 9/11. And in the next
No, this was nothing like 9/11, and this is not climate, this is weather. Something that will happen even without climate change.
year, when I was elected to Congress, the world's leading climate scientists declared another emergency. They told us that we had 12 years left to cut our emissions
Okay, we heard this part.
to change everything. Our economy, and for a nation, we'd been in peril before. The Great Depression, World War. Lots of people gave up. They said we were doomed. But some of us remembered that as a nation, we'd been in peril before. The Great Depression, World War II.
You want to know what got us out of the Great Depression? World War II. You want to know how we won in World War II? Nuclear. You want to get rid of nuclear stuff and you hate war.
We knew from our history how to pull together to overcome impossible odds.
World War II is what got us out of the Great Depression.
And at the very least, we owed it to our children to try. The wave began when Democrats took back the House in 2018. Political transformation used the federal jobs guarantee, a public option, including dignified living wages for work. Funnily enough, the biggest problem in those early years was a labor shortage. We were building a national smart grid, retrofitting every building in America, putting trains like this one all across the country. We needed more
Okay, well, I'm sorry. You're not gonna be able to do any of that.
workers. That group of kids from my neighborhood were right in the middle of it all, especially this one girl, Ileana.
Okay, I'm pretty sure we got the rest, but like, goddamn. This is all just